worried we're going to get a lot of projector noise.
There's no way around it.
No, I know. I don't know how sharp a focus this will be, but...
Well, you can play around with it. I mean,
yeah, I know.
I mean, if your main focus anyway is trying to get the part with the players, that's in there where you get enough chance to.
Yeah.
And you can do whatever you want with your cake ahead.
Well, we'll probably just show as much of it as we can. Yeah, see, it went back to autofocus way back. All right, let's see what we can do anyway.
I chose back here to teach after I graduated from college. I'm a third generation Oswegonian. We've always thought our town was fine just the way it is.
I'm native of Detroit. I came here 4 years ago to start my own business. I chose Oswego because of its growth potential. I must say the reception was not enthusiastic.
Oswego is a small town, but a friendly one. Lots of families go back many generations. Everybody seems to know everybody else. That's the way we like it.
This town has everything. It's located on a huge body of fresh water, Lake Ontario. It has a fast-growing college, it has cultural activities, it has marvelous transportation, and now the St. Lawrence Seaway has become a world port. The town has great potential, and the people will have to grow with it. And I believe that finally they are.
Of course you can't stop change. Just as you can't stop new people and new businesses from coming into town. And we wouldn't want to. Urban Renewal under the federal program is bringing about many changes in our town. But it shouldn't be out with the old, in with the new completely. There are lots of things that are worth saving. Just because things are old, they don't have to be destroyed. America has made this mistake too often in the past. Some things in Oswego are even worth saving.
My home. Not really. I don't sleep here. I don't eat here. But I do spend most of my waking hours here. This is the city library, and I'm the city librarian. Architecturally, it's a very interesting building. Many people think of it as Victorian, but actually, it belongs to the Romantic period. And the children are probably right when they refer to it as the castle. Most people think of the library only as a place to borrow books. For a long time, that was how we thought of it in Oswego. But recently, we have come to realize that a library could be much more. It could be a place for children to come to share experiences, to build things, to talk about what they have read, to discover each other and themselves. It could be a place to invite different people to teach the children different things.
Both that's right, and then wiggle it back and forth and then you have it right. Okay? That's fine.
It could be a place to have our books sandwiched in. We have what we call our sandwiched in book reviews. Here, working people and housewives come to hear a book review.
We're going to have a very serious survey of a part of Southern life which is concerning the miscegenation and finally the ironic liberation of Lord Byron Jones.
Sometimes, as a part of our summer reading program, We even take groups of our young readers on excursions so that they can see some of the things they have been reading about. It might be a tour of the harbor, including a trip past the harbor's lighthouse. Or a visit to the college observatory. Anything dealing with space is, of course, of great interest to the children these days. Then, when they get back to the library, they work on their own projects about space and the problems of exploration in space.
Just a few blocks from the library is the building directly behind me, the headquarters house of the Oswego County Historical Society. This is a building the Society has been preserving and showing to the public since 1947. It's called the Bates Richardson House, named primarily after the Honorable Maxwell Bates Richardson, who himself was twice mayor of the city of Oswego, who dabbled in real estate and perhaps in some other things that the Historical Society isn't supposed to talk about, and who was the most primarily, or was most well known, for the development down a couple blocks from this house of the Richardson Theater, in which there was a good bit of entertainment throughout the 1890s and early part of the 20th century. Mr. Richardson perhaps enjoyed being a impresario better than any other aspect of his career as a local citizen of Oswego. And he certainly was one of the more prominent people in town, and we certainly are very pleased that this type of house can be preserved and kept available for the public, and it's being done so at the present time. This is an opulent house, from an opulent and a gay era, the gay 90s. Its owner, Maxwell Richardson, never married, but we do know that he often entertained visiting theater and burlesque stars here, and as a matter of fact, some of the parties may have gone on for days. He left a scrapbook containing old theater programs. Upstairs, the Oswego County Historical Society has preserved souvenirs from the history of the county. We have some posters made for the election of 1860 by a group of local people who were obviously Lincoln's fans. Mr. Richardson himself was a colorful personality from a colorful time. His theater, which played opera, or what was called opera then, ballet, musical comedy, and burlesque, is gone. It is now a parking lot. But in this house here, where he lived his gay, somewhat lavish existence, there were parties, and if you listen very, very closely,
As an architect, teaching architectural history as well as architectural design at Syracuse University, I see Oswego with perhaps more detached and professional eye than with the familiarity of a native. But familiarity sometimes can breed, if not exactly contempt, at least an unawareness or an indifference to the things around us which we see every day. This contributes to a problem quite common to communities like Oswego across the state, of trying to preserve some of the better qualities of an environment which has been enriched by years of building. Of course, times change, and our surroundings have to be adapted, but there is much to lose and very much worth preserving. This is a very fine house, one of the oldest in Oswego, from the period commonly called Federal. The building is valuable and worth preserving for the future, but because of its relative antiquity for upstate architecture, it is probably more appreciated and less threatened with neglect or destruction than many other buildings. Not
preserved. What once was a very important building has been so neglected and modified as to be a great loss. The great era of growth for Oswego, like most upstate communities, was in the 19th century. The period of commercial prosperity left a visual history of the times in the architecture of the community.
But more difficult than building the new is somehow finding ways to preserve the old. A great building is as much a part of a culture, perhaps more so in a social sense, as any other form of art, and preservation of these buildings should be as important to the community as any other cultural activity.
The Heritage Foundation has gone a long way toward establishing a need in the public mind for the preservation of, by supporting an archaeological committee which has been actively engaged in recovering artifacts from the area in and around Fort Ontario. The methods used in doing this are surface examination of soil as it is removed from the dig with a metal detector, sifting the soil for recovery of tiny objects, careful removal of additional artifacts from the ground, examination and identification of objects, and careful recording of each day's discovery in the committee log.
Can you stop here?
Well,
Okay.
Welcome to Fort Ontario.
that's right, clear. Ready? Roll call. Sergeant line. Corporal with it. Private line.
What you've just seen is part of our effort to recapture the physical appearance of life in an active garrison fortification of the 1860s. All of the uniforms, equipment, and weapons of the Guard detachment are similar to those used by United States regular Army, infantry, and artillery units that were in garrison here at that time. The Fort Ontario Guard is a cooperative project between the State Education Department and the Heritage Foundation of Oswego. Its members are college students trained to perform all of the various functions and duties of their counterparts of 100 years ago. I'm the curator of history for the State Education Department.
The first Fort Ontario was built by the British in 1755 to challenge the expansion of French power in North America. A French army destroyed this fort, and a larger, stronger one was built in 1759. From it, the British launched expeditions that ended French dominion on the continent. The graves of the soldiers who died at the fort are maintained, and each year British flags furnished by the Heritage Foundation of Oswego are flown over the tombs. During the War of 1812, Fort Ontario was used by American troops to protect the supply route to the main naval base at Sackett's Harbor. In the Civil War, Fort Ontario was modernized in fear of possible British intervention on the part of the Confederacy. The United States Army abandoned the post in 1946, and after a 3-year interim, it became an historical museum property of the state of New York. The restoration is a long-term development, continuing today, and we hope for some years into the future. It is being aided substantially by the local efforts of the Heritage Foundation. Each year sees increasing numbers of visitors sensitive to and proud of the role of Fort Ontario in America's history.
see real people acting. During the year, I have a college job, and I teach speech and theater. But during the summer, I decided we ought to have a show wagon and bring the shows to children in the park. So this is the show wagon which you see, which we decided to use for the park entertainment. I like it a little farther to the left there. The show wagon is a portable theater which can easily be moved from place to place. Actually, this type of touring theater goes back to the Middle Ages in Europe. But in America, it first became popular during the Depression years as part of the WPA theater project. This year, our show wagon production is the Red Shoes. Our performers are children between the ages of 12 and 17. We never have an admissions charge. The children who come to see the show wagon are of all ages and backgrounds. Theater is thousands of years old. It must have something wonderful to have lasted that long. I think what the kids like best about living theater is the human element of it happening right now, alive, before their eyes. That is probably true for adults, too.
This building is our Oswego Art Center, the home of the Oswego Players, our local community theater group, and the Oswego Art Guild. The Oswego Players have been in existence about 30 years, and they're made up of people from all walks of life with one common bond, a love of live theater. The building was formerly used as an old Army commissary until right after World War II when it was deserted. The building itself was structurally sound, but in major need of repairs. A roof leak, there were no windows in the building, there were no plumbing, heating, or electricity. It was proposed that half the building could be used by the Players for a small theater, and the other half by the Art Guild for a workshop and art gallery. The obvious enthusiasm of both groups for the project resulted in the City Council allowing us to use the building at no cost. It was at this point we received a real blessing in the form of the New York State Council on the Arts. They didn't give us any money or materials, but they did give us expert advice from impartial professionals in the form of complete plans for the conversion of the interior of the building. In general, these plans carried out the thoughts of our own people, but had the effect of solidifying many different approaches into one master plan, which allowed us to proceed with everyone pulling in the same direction. They really helped us to help ourselves. Finally, we have our own theater, seating capacity 120. Not much of a theater by big city standards, but ideal for our purposes. We feel that this is a remarkable example of what can be accomplished when enthusiastic citizens, city, county, and state government all pull together towards a common goal.
So don't try to call again. The phone is in my room, and no one goes into my room but me. Oh,
I don't know.
One more thing before you go. If by some chance the 11th child named Cynthia turns out to be a Siamese cat, give it to me. I too say well. Oh, Jesus. I think I better go.
You're gonna come back again? Please come back again.
I'm a housewife. I have 3 daughters and 5 grandchildren. As a youngster, I was interested in singing and dancing, and I appeared in several school plays. But it wasn't until I joined the Players that I became active in the legitimate theater. Since then, I have been in 18 major productions. I've had leading roles in their productions of Inherit the Wind, Dear Charles, King of Hearts, Anniversary Waltz, to mention a few. Luckily, I have a very understanding husband. When the children were small, he used to babysit, and he never complains about the time I spend in rehearsals. I enjoy the challenge of every role. I especially like to make people laugh. In fact, I love it.
I have the male lead in Oh Dad. I play Jonathan. This is the 4th show since September that I've been in, and this is about the toughest role I've ever played. During the day, work for Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation as a gas mechanic. I enjoy this very, very much.
We're equally proud of this our end of the Art Center building, which consists of this art studio, the gallery upstairs, and some future craft studios in the basement. We've had in the neighborhood of 200 children go through art classes. We've had very fine instructors. We've been able to have adult classes both inside and out. So this has become a real working art center.
We're proud to be able to exhibit our work here in our lovely second floor gallery. Also, once a year, we have what we call our bridge exhibit, which is similar to the kind of thing that's done in Washington Square each fall. It's an outdoor exhibit of local work. Our bridge exhibit is about 6 years old, and each year it seems to be getting more popular. A couple of years ago, one of our more prominent visitors was the governor. He enjoyed our show so much that he was late for his next appointment, but he didn't buy anything.
To sing barbershop harmony, to make the sound that we work to develop, it is truly an art. We sing mainly songs which have become a part of our national heritage, the old song. Our chapter here in Oswego was started about approximately 4 years ago by a small group of former barbershoppers from other communities.
Summer band concerts began in Oswego just 30 years ago as part of an adult education program, and they've been carried on by the musicians ever since as a public service project. We play 6 concerts every summer, and they're always an appreciating audience. We like very much to play, and as long as folks want to listen, we'll play.
Oswego is strictly a college affair as far as performers go, but the audiences come from both the college and surrounding area. We give several performances of each concert in order to reach as many people as possible. Right now, we are just getting underway with the initial rehearsals for this year's production.
phrase we hear and read frequently these days is cultural explosion. According to some observers, the country is becoming increasingly aware of the satisfactions to be gained by participating in the graphic and the performing arts. Now, I don't know that what is happening in Oswego can be called a cultural explosion, although it is true that what we have done mostly along these lines has taken place within the past 4 or 5 years. We are happy with what we are doing and a little proud that other communities look to us for an example in setting programs of their own, in establishing theater groups, musical organizations, art guilds, and perhaps preserving part of their cultural heritage, such as buildings of architectural merit. It seems important to remember that here in Oswego, we have what we have because the people in town want it and are willing to work to develop and support it. Fortunately, we have had some helping hands. Guidance from the New York State Council on the Arts, technical assistance from the personnel at the State University College here, superior support and cooperation from the city administration, and financial aid from the County Board of Supervisors. But above all, we have the desire of the people themselves to get more from life than just earning a living and watching television.